Surface Spins.
Hello. Hi, the Surface Spins here. Today is kind of a special episode. We have a guest that's come aboard to join our show. And our guest today is Jack. And Jack, his channel is The Flaming Groove Listens. Did I get that right?
There's no the.
Oh, sorry. Flaming Groove Listens. And I'll put a link below to Jack's channel. You can check him out.
He's knocking the program's image.
And it's sort of a funny story because I was at the KUSF Rock and Swap and I was looking through records and I heard someone talking next to me and I recognized his voice and I said, "Are you Jack?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm Jack." And that was the first time I met Jack in person. I've watched his channel many times. But then a little bit later up to me and he said, he goes, "Hey, are you looking for anything in particular?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm always looking for the Big Bopper's first record." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then you took off. I think you were heading out. And I walked just a few steps, and there was the Big Bopper's first record for sale at someone's booth. A record I've been looking for a long time. And I purposefully didn't bring I think over $200 with me. And I'd nearly spent all of that already. So I made a deal to pick up the record later. And I drove down to Santa Cruz and met a really nice guy. His name is John Hogland, who lives down in the Santa Cruz area. I just got the record a couple days ago. And now I have all three of the original first pressings of the records by the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, and Ritchie Valens. It's kind of a morbid collection in a way, but I've been looking to get all three of those records for a long, long time, and I kind of thank Jack for it. I don't know why, you're kind of like my good luck charm, Jack. I really appreciate that.
You like that?
Yeah. So this one I picked up is the Big Bopper's first record that came out, which is really kind of strange because the song Chantilly Lace, I think, was released on a single before the Big Bopper died. But this album actually was not released until February. I had it written down here. Until late February. Now, the famous plane crash that took the lives of the Big Bopper, Ritchie Valens, and Buddy Holly happened on February 3rd, 1959. And this record came out at the end of February, just a few weeks after he passed away. So the record was finished, completed, but didn't get its official release until after he passed away, which is kind of sad. But the song was already a hit. And then I was talking to you, Jack, on the telephone, and you were saying you lived up in that area near Iowa, or you?
Well, the plane crash happened in Storm Lake, Iowa.
I thought it was Clear Lake, Iowa. Was it
Clear Lake?
Yeah, Clear
Maybe.
Lake. Okay.
Storm Lake and Clear Lake are really, I think they're really close to each other, and I'm not sure. But Storm Lake may be right, which was about 80 miles from Omaha. So, I mean, this was when the plane crash happened, that was local news.
Right.
Now, it was also national news, but February 3rd, 1959, well, on April 26th, I was 10 years old. So on February 3rd, I was 9, almost 10. And I knew who Buddy Holly was.
Right.
Because he had hits. And I knew who Ritchie Valens was because he had a hit.
Right.
But the Big Bopper was actually the only one I'd seen on television. I think he was doing the Big Bopper's wedding. I'm not, maybe Chantilly Lace too. But he was a big guy, and I was like an overweight kid, and I just, Big Bopper. Yeah, I like, my 9-year-old self. I liked him a lot.
Right.
And this was like the first big tragedy in my life. 9 years old, and your rock and roll star dies.
Wow.
I mean, before that, I saw Elvis, on TV. I'd never been to any shows or anything. I mean, I'm 9 for crying out loud.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
But I always liked the Big Bopper,
Hmm.
and well, I like Buddy Holly too. Richie Valens, he only made a couple of songs. I haven't. Don, I really like that. La Bamba, of course.
A question. When you say you'd heard him before, do you remember hearing the Big Bopper on the radio? Or was it just a television appearance? Or was
Well,
it on?
I mean, he had a couple of hits. You know, I was looking at a little bit about the Big Bopper. You know, he wrote a bunch of songs for other people that were hits.
He did. Yeah.
You know, George Jones, White Lightning, that was a hit for George Jones. Uh, there was a single, I think it was Johnny Preston, called Running Bear.
Okay. So Johnny Preston did a cover of the Running Bear song.
Right. And that was a big hit. And that was, now, you know, when you're a kid and you're listening to the pop radio, top 40 radio is what we had, right? The little transistors. At night, you could get stations that were farther away.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a station in Oklahoma City that used to play Running Bear.
Wow.
And the stations in Omaha didn't play it. And
Hmm.
that was like the big thing. Could you get it through the static? You know, it wasn't that great a song. It was just something that you couldn't get on your own local station, right?
Right. Now, when you listen to music at home, was it on the car stereo or a family
Well,
radio player in the house? How did you
by
hear
the
music?
time, you know, we had a big plastic monophonic record player that played 4 speeds and up to 16-inch records. That, as far as I can tell, was there before I was. You know, I don't know.
Right, right.
But somewhere, so that was 59, and somewhere in the mid 60s, we got a real shitty suitcase stereo, Webcore suit. But
Hmm.
we did not really have any. There was the radio. Mom had a kitchen radio and little transistor radios for the kids. And then the car radio, you know, like by the time I graduated from high school, I think I had 5 or 6 albums. I mean,
Hmm.
record buying wasn't what we did in those days.
Right,
I mean, by the time I graduated from high school, I had a car and a motorcycle. Those were what you did, right? You
right.
just listened to the radio. But then I started buying records when I went off to flunk out of college. Well, my brother was 6 years older and my sister was 3 years older. So
Ah,
I was getting the teenage information from them earlier than I would have, like, from my own going to school. And if I was the oldest kid, you know, my, but music, my dad loved to sing. He played he sang in the choir at church. And actually was in Bye Bye Birdie at the local playhouse,
hmm.
Omaha Playhouse. But we didn't sit around listening to records. You watch Ed Sullivan, you know.
Right, right. TV, people would come on TV and you'd hear about it that way.
Right. Perry Como would be on TV. You know, we'd see that kind of stuff. But
So,
yeah.
so this record is it's the first pressing of the Big Bopper's first record, which
Wow.
again didn't come out until wasn't officially released until I think about 3 weeks after he died, like late February.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and but many of these songs I think were already out on 45s before that. Maybe
I
this,
think most of them were. I mean, if you look
yeah,
at Discogs, there's lots of 45s and there's only one LP, different variations of, you know, I mean, the one I've got's got a different cover, and fewer songs.
right. When Big Bopper died, it had a big impact on you, more so than Buddy Holly and Richie Valens, or was it just the entire?
Well, it was the entire thing.
Yeah,
You know, it was like 3 big rock and roll stars, uh, all at once. And now we would go. Our family would go almost every summer to Lake Okoboji,
Wow.
and I didn't realize it until oh years later when my wife and I were back visiting my mom, and we went to visit Lake Okoboji because my aunt had a cottage right on the lake and spent the summers up there every summer. And we drive up, it's different highways, but you drive up the same way. And our route to Lake Okoboji, we drive right past the nightclub that in Storm Lake, Iowa. And I didn't realize it until, it was probably 88, 89 when we went up there.
Yeah, the last performance that these guys did was at a place called the Surf Ballroom.
Right, the Surf Ballroom.
And I have it written down as Clear Lake, Iowa. But
well, that's probably right. You're
Clear Lake.
And Storm Lake is close by.
Okay.
It's I think Storm Lake might be a little bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But so we drove by it. I mean, as a kid, I didn't realize what it was, but in the late 80s when we drove by it, they were still playing music there. It was still the Surf Ballroom, and it was there.
There it was, huh?
Right there on the highway. And I don't know.
So this is in February in Iowa, which I've never been to Iowa, but I'm thinking it's pretty cold up there. And
February in Iowa can be real cold, and lots of snow on the ground and stuff.
Because what I was looking at was where they were flying to. They were flying from Clear Lake. They were heading up to Moorhead, Minnesota. And Moorhead, Minnesota was where the next show was the next night. And when I looked on Google Maps, it said it's about 400 or 500 miles north. And I guess the bus would have been much slower and also colder. I think that was one of the reasons why the guys wanted the plane.
And they wanted to do their laundry. Buddy wanted to do his laundry. He was tired of being cold. The bus heater didn't work. These package tours they would put together back then. If you want to know about what happened, about Google on YouTube, Dion did a remarkable, it's about an hour and a half show. And you got to realize Dion was there, right? He was part of this tour.
He was on the bill.
He was on the bill. And I only watched this like about a month and a half ago. But it's been up on YouTube a long time, like 6 or 7 years. And it is real good. It's just, it's shit happens. But the way those tours were packaged, they were doing everything on the cheap, and the people were sleeping on the bus and playing every night, and then get back on the bus and sleep while they go to the next gig.
Right. So they just wanted to get up there fast, but get out of the cold.
Literally to get out of the cold bus and to do their laundry.
Right.
Which probably meant the plane was overloaded because it had laundry in it too, besides the 3 guys.
Right.
But
you said you had a Big Bopper record that you purchased in the day.
Well, I have a single that I got on Mercury of the Big Bopper's Wedding and Little Red Riding Hood on the flip side. And I remember playing that when I was a kid.
Could you show it to us if you have it there? Put it right on the camera. Okay. Put it right on the camera. Okay. So it's on the Mercury label.
It's on the Mercury label. This paper sleeve is a Hitsville, USA sleeve, which has Motown, Gordy, VIP, Melody, Soul, and Tamla. But I just figure it probably got switched out when I was a kid sometime.
Right. They get switched around.
And
what are the 2 songs on that 45? You said one was It's not Chantilly lace.
No,
Chantilly
no,
lace.
it's Big Bopper's Wedding
Big Bopper's
and
Wedding.
Little Red Riding Hood. Hey,
Okay, and
there, Little Red Riding Hood. When it came out in 71, I bought this.
okay, that's the
This is the US, I mean the UK reissue on the Contour label.
ah
I have seen I bought it new, whatever record prices were in 71. They weren't very expensive, I'll tell you that.
right. Now is that album from 71, the Big Bopper record, is that in stereo or in mono? Did they
Uh,
electronically rechannel it for stereo as they used to do, you know?
well, you know,
Does it say? Is it hard to tell?
I have to look because I don't think so, but oh, yeah, mono recording electronically reprocessed to give stereo effect. So they did.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty common practice.
And yeah, if I think about it, I just hit the mono switch.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't think about it very often.
Right. Here's the inner sleeve on my record, which I think is the original inner too. It has some nice
Oh,
color
sure.
pictures, and
Oh, yeah.
it's got a Pearl Bailey record. It's got a Earl Garner, Sarah Vaughan. I mean,
Mercury
rock.
made a lot of good records.
Yeah, a lot of these. I mean, there's not much rock and roll. Here's one, Rock and Roll Bash by the Crew Cuts. I'm
Oh,
not.
yeah.
I've heard of the Crew Cuts, but I don't have any of their records. And there was one over here on the other side. Oh, there's a Harpo Marx record. Here's one called Rock and Roll by Red Presock. I don't know who Red Presock is. That's a new name to me.
I think he's a sax player, isn't he?
Oh yeah, maybe
Out of
there's a
New
guy
Orleans?
There's a guy playing a saxophone on the front here.
Yeah, I think
So this is when rock and roll was at its infancy.
well, 59, 50. You know,
Yeah,
you've got a record that was released in 59. So all that stuff that they're advertising on it was stuff that was released. Like you said, it was released in February of 59. Those are all the records that came out in 58, early 59.
right,
Companies typically, I mean, everybody had those kind of sleeves available. A lot of companies used them.
right.
They tended to only use them on the first pressing. So it's one of the ways you can tell.
Yeah. So here's the record itself. It's on the Mercury label. You can see, and it's in mono. And you can tell that it's not the second pressing because the term a custom high fidelity recording is only on 2 lines. If those words are broken up into 3 lines, then it's a second pressing. So this is the first pressing based on.
It's so hard to tell between. I was entering crap into Discogs today because I went out and bought a bunch of records yesterday, and it's sometimes you can tell by the label, and sometimes it's something. You know how they have the name, and then underneath it in parentheses they've got the same number, only maybe a different prefix.
Right.
On a lot of records. And it turns out that on the first pressing, they don't have that second number.
Well, this is the record that sort of started off my pursuit, which I found in the
Crickets, yeah.
In the 1980s. I found this at a Goodwill store, and I got it for a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's the original one, first pressing. You can tell because I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's got this textured sleeve.
Right.
It's got like a canvas kind of texture. It's kind of funny on the back in the notes here. It says that Buddy Holly and the Crickets were from Bullock, Texas, not from Lubbock. They misspelled his the city.
It, yeah.
Yeah, it says Bullock.
You ever been to Lubbock?
I've never been to Lubbock. That's one of my dreams, is to go to Lubbock, Texas.
We drove through Lubbock one year, and I had to stop. We had to stop, and there is a statue of Buddy in Lubbock.
Wow.
But the Flatlanders are from Lubbock too, and they're still playing, and they're awesome. But Yeah.
I don't know the Flatlanders. Are they a early rock band too?
The Flatlanders originally got together 71, 72, bunch of Texas ne'er-do-wells.
Hmm.
Joe Ely, Butch Hancock, and Jimmy Dale Gilmore.
Oh, I know Joe Ely. I've heard of him, of course.
Well, you heard of him after the Flatlanders.
Right.
They released their first record. I think was just released on 8-track tape because it was what the Texas kids used to listen to.
Oh, funny.
And then they broke up, and Joe Ely did a career, Jimmy Dale did a career, Butch Hancock did a career, and in like 2000 or something, 1990. Some British company reissued the original Flatlanders album, which has got some songs like Dallas.
I don't know. No, I don't know that song. No.
Anyway, so the original Flatlanders album got released. So they got back together, and they're still playing. You want to see a real good video of them? The Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Archives has got a couple.
Oh, really?
Of the Flatlanders, and you get an idea of who they are. But basically it's 3 rock and roll stars that got started together, and 30 years later got back together, and they've been back together for 25 years or now or so.
I've got to look into them. I know Joe Ely's work. I've got 1 or 2 of his records, but I didn't know
almost all of his.
I didn't know much about knew nothing about the Flatlanders. So this Buddy Holly record, I kind of got into Buddy Holly like a lot of people by watching that movie with Gary Busey.
Oh yeah, that was a good movie.
The Buddy Holly story. And then, of course, this record, the original Buddy Holly that I have, is not in perfect shape sound-wise. It's a little crackly here and there. So I had to buy the new Analog Productions reissue.
Oh,
and you can see it's slightly different, but it sounds immaculate. It sounds perfect. So I have both of those, and I think they even left in the misprint. They did leave in the misprint that says they're from Bullock. They didn't change that. They wanted to be as authentic, I guess, as they could. So they left that in, the typo. But they couldn't use the original Brunswick logo, so they had to change it over to say Analog Productions, but with the same style. I don't know if you can see that, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I have most of my Buddy Holly collections are comps that, I picked up over the years. They suffice. I'm not.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to go after the big bucks for the rare stuff particularly. Yeah. Although I got a picture sleeve. It's a picture. It's a
Buddy Holly picture disc. Cool.
Which somebody gave me. I didn't buy it, but
Buddy Holly in person. Is that a real live album? A Buddy Holly live album?
Yeah. It's not very good, but yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. This is volume 2. Mm-hmm. And side 1 is the newscast about the plane crash.
Oh, wow.
And then there's a tribute. Then there's My Desire, recorded in 58. Good Rockin' Tonight, unreleased and undubbed demo, recorded in 56. Stay Close to Me by Lou Giordano. Buddy wrote and produced, plays guitar on this song. So it's not really a live record.
Okay.
It's alternate version, but they are not the stuff that came out originally.
Right. It's sort of leftovers in a way. Yeah.
Leftovers and stuff. And it's pretty interesting.
Well, this is not an original. This My Buddy Holly one. This is an Analogs Productions one as well. This is Buddy Holly's first solo record. He only made the one album with the Crickets. The other one I showed before, the Chirping Crickets, and then he made this one, which is his first solo record. And this
what's on that record?
On this one, it's got Peggy Sue, I'm Gonna Love You Too, Listen to Me, Valley of Tears, Ready Teddy, Every Day, Words of Love, Rave On. It's got a lot of the what you
Every
think of
Day
it.
was one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah, me too. It's got a lot of those classic Buddy Holly songs that you think of. And he actually put out a third record, a second solo record, which I don't have. And
Well,
Analog Productions hasn't released it yet. What is that one? Oh, that's another compilation.
well, this is called This is the very first Buddy Holly record that I actually bought, and it's on the
Okay.
Vocalion label, uh, and it's the Great Buddy Holly. You Are My One Desire, Blue Days, Black Nights, Modern Don Juan, Rock Around with Ollie V. What a great song.
Yeah.
Girl on My Mind, That'll Be the Day, Love Me, I'm Changing All Those Changes,
Right.
Don't Come Back Knocking, and Midnight Shift. And for years, I mean, this was the only one that I actually owned myself.
So I'm not sure, but if that what who played on that record, because what they did with a lot of Buddy Holly's recordings was they had other musicians play with his old recordings after he'd passed away. They had a group, I think the group was called the Fireballs, and I'm not sure if the Fireballs are on that one or not, but
The 3 tunes are on 4 songs out of 10.
was that what they call the backing group? The 3
It's
tunes?
got well, there's an asterisk, and it says with the 3 tunes, singing with instrumental accompaniment. And so, Rock Around with Ollie V, Girl on My Mind, That'll Be the Day, and I'm Changing All These Changes have the asterisks, so the 3 tunes are behind him. Whether that was done before or after, because Vocalion's a product of Decca Records, a division of MCA, and this is probably came out in 59 or 60.
Yeah, those might feature the Fireballs, but you're calling them the 3 tunes. Maybe that was the name they went under when they backed up Buddy's those records.
Well, I think the Fireballs might be a different. I'm not sure.
It could be. I don't actually know. I've only heard the term Fireball.
I've got this comp and this comp.
Hey, I've got that one too, right here.
Yeah, that one.
This one, Legend.
Yeah, the Legend's a good one. This one here, and when I was a kid growing up, I had a bunch of friends that had a bunch of choral comps that came out, right after he passed away.
Right.
You could get everything redone on these choral label comps, which I heard at the time, but I didn't buy them then, and they're not around now.
Now this one, which came out in 1983, which if I'm not mistaken, came out after the movie, the Gary Busey movie. This stripped back all of those added musicians and went back to the original recordings. Right. And this was put together by Steve Hoffman too, who runs the Hoffman Form, And so this is a great record. If you see this one, it sounds great, and it goes back to the original source material rather than adding to it. So this is a good one to look for.
I've got 2 copies of it.
You do?
And I think they're basically the same. I just, I have trouble if sometimes I don't remember if I have a record. I end up buying it again.
Same here. I have that same problem.
So far, I went out record shopping 2 days this weekend, and I bought a duplicate Buckwheat Zydeco on the first day and a duplicate Harry Nilsson on the second on today.
Yes, I have the same problem, and sometimes I brought home quite a few records that I already have copies of. This record is interesting. It's a UK pressing. And what's interesting is that they're all in the original mono. They didn't do any of that electronically rechanneling for stereo. And it's a 2-disc set, all original mono, except for side 4. And side 4 has original stereo mixes, because I guess Buddy Holly was recording his stuff in stereo at the very end of his career.
Yeah.
So this has a side four. There's about 6 or 7 songs, I think, that are in true stereo that Buddy recorded that way. But most of it, the other 3 sides are all in the original mono, which is really nice. That's kind of what I like to hear.
Well, mine's a UK also. All right.
Yeah, see, yeah, this is a UK pressing.
I I think this is just one of those records that I went, well, I don't have it, I'll buy it. But
Yeah. They all the
yeah.
mono stuff sounds great.
Yes.
Here's the other one, my Richie Valens. And this Richie Valens record is one that I inherited, and it's a first pressing. It's on the Delphi label, and it was only out for Richie Valens is a California guy,
Right.
born in San Fernando Valley, and he was only 17 years old when he died. Sadly,
He was a real young.
he was a young guy.
What was his big hit? Donna?
Donna, well, La Bamba,
La
Donna,
Bamba and Donna, I think, are the big
yeah.
hit.
And this album, again, was only out for a month. It came out in January of 1959, 1 month before he died. La Bamba, Donna, let's
Come on, let's
go.
go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got a gal
I
named
think I have a
Sue.
Richie Valens record, but it's certainly not that one.
Right,
It's some sort of a thrown together comp,
right.
and I'm not.
And there's the label, and the original Delphi label, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's not a
That's
Delphi. I know
right.
that.
So those are the big three. Let me line them up here. Richie Valens, Big Bopper, and Buddy Holly. So it's been 30 years plus trying to find these records, and you were right there on the day that I found the final one. The final one.
There you go.
Crazy. So, any other final thoughts about being in that part of the world at that time? You said you remember hearing it. It was big news across the
Well,
country,
well,
but
it was big news across the country, but
big news
you
where you
know,
were at.
news in 1958, 1959 was a lot more local
Right.
than it is. You know, we're this is way before color television. This is way before, I mean, live events on TV were were strange. I mean, football games, baseball games, but they weren't anywhere near the technology we got
Oh,
today.
yeah. Just a couple
And
of TV channels and the radio and the newspaper. That was about it.
well, right. I mean, growing up in Carroll, Iowa, until I was in second grade, we didn't get television until I was in kindergarten because it just didn't exist.
Right.
And I mean, it existed in the big cities, but you had to have a 50-foot antenna to pick anything up, and you had to have a station within 50 miles. And it just didn't, it took a while.
Right.
Took a while.
Well,
But
hey, I really thank you for talking today with me about these records and sharing your memories about growing
no
up in
problem.
growing
No
up in.
problem.
You grew up in Omaha, but you lived in Iowa too, huh?
I was born in Iowa. When I was in second grade, our family moved to Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
So from the time I was in second grade until I was a 20-year-old college dropout, I basically, well, I went to college in Lincoln, which is 60
Oh,
miles from Omaha.
okay.
But, it's, I went more for the parties, I guess, than I did for the education and to avoid the draft.
Mm.
Boy, as soon as I dropped out on a Thursday, I got my pre-induction physical notice on Monday in the mail.
Mm. Wow.
Although I didn't pass my pre-induction physical, so we weren't too worried. But
I,
that's
I'll, thank you so much for talking today. We really appreciate you sharing your memories and your records with us. It's been really nice. I'm just going to say thank you to you, and thank you for anyone watching. Please subscribe to Jack's channel. It's called Flaming Groove Listens, and I'll put a link below to it. And check out Jack's channel. And thank you for watching today. Surfer Spin signing out. Bye.
Rock and roll. What an empty generation.